I've wanted to do a video on how to draw hands for a while now. About a week ago, from the day I'm recording this, I went to a coffee shop and was doing a hand drawing session, and I just happened to have my recording stuff. I don't bring it with me all the time because it's pretty heavy. So I thought that would be a good opportunity to do a voiceover describing the thought process that I'm going through when I'm drawing a hand. So this first one, and most of the hands that come after this, I generally start by drawing the area of the palm, or kind of like the outside contour line of the hand itself. And then usually I start by, after that first shape, trying to establish the smaller shapes inside of it. Most of the time that ends up being the thumb and bump under the thumb, the fat pad. After that, I generally start to go in on the fingers, and all of this is done with like a fairly light line. And then what you're seeing now is me going in with darker lines to further refine those shapes. This hand's kind of messed up because I don't think that where all the fingers connect is totally correct. The space between the pinky and the ring finger looks weird to me. So once I get everything outlined, I guess, I start to block in areas of light and shadow. For sketches of hands, this isn't really totally necessary, but I like doing it anyway. And then here I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that there's like that kind of looser skin above the thumb. So when you move your hand in this way, it like creates some creases there. I've also found that like wearing a watch while you're drawing hands, like I'm right-handed, so most of the hands that I draw with my reference of my other hand is my left hand. Wearing a watch on your left hand helps to establish like where to stop and gives you a kind of additional sense of volume because the watch is going around your wrist. So I actually think wearing a watch is kind of helpful for drawing hands. So this is just establishing some bounce light. And I was really lazy about drawing the watch. It doesn't have to be good. So for this next one, you'll see the same type of process. Like I'll establish the outer bounds of it, and then the thumb and fat pad under the thumb. And then starting to go in on the fingers and establishing the area of those. It does help when you're drawing fingers to also think about how they're connecting and what angles they're at when they're changing. So like the joints on the hand aren't all in a straight line. So keeping in mind that like if a fist is tight, the pinky will be lower than the pointer finger. it kind of like rotates as it goes through. So now I'm just like refining the lines of the knuckles a little bit to help show that there's a rotation that happens. Something that I'm not great at is stuff like right here on the fat pad under the thumb. There's a lot of really fine lines when you're in a fist. Drawing those is still really, really hard for me. So I kind of just drew one and then was like, all right, that's fine. Just refining the shadows a little bit. See, that was my attempt at drawing the rest of the lines there. And then this is just trying to establish some core lighting. And again, using the watch as a way to terminate. Alright, so I think this one is kind of like a palm up, fingers kind of spread with the pinky coming more towards the camera. So the thumb doesn't factor in as much in this pose. So I started with the pinky that is kind of coming at the camera a little bit more instead. And here, because of perspective, I'm trying to just like make sure that the way that the fingers are oriented, the tips of them are all in the right locations. So sometimes it's hard to say like, oh, I know that the pointer finger is longer than the ring finger, or I know that, like in my case, they're about the same length, but like the middle finger is longer than the pinky. But in certain orientations, that kind of stuff isn't just assumed. Like you have to like make sure that you're looking at your hand in the perspective, in the pose that it's in, and making sure that like one finger isn't way longer than the other, but also in perspective, because that will make it look wrong. So you have to really compare where your fingertips are. It's like the pinky only comes up to like the first knuckle of the ring finger there. Adjusting the position of the pointer finger a little bit. And sometimes these changes are because I've like moved my hand since I started drawing it. That's something that also happens if you're just like I did all this in a coffee shop. So if I'm drinking coffee and like not really paying attention to the position of my hand, sometimes it'll kind of slowly dip down. So here I'm trying to draw the skin kind of gathering up from putting the pinky up like that. the watch again. You'll also see that my pencil is pretty dull at this point. I don't mind having a fairly dull pencil when I'm doing sketching like this. So this hand's a much more like in perspective variation pose. Kind of like gathering all my fingers to the right and pointing my pointer. I think poses like this are actually easier because they're a bigger variation from just like a straight palm or something. So I think this one actually took quite a bit less time than some of the others. It'll be hard to tell because I sped them all up at different speeds. In total, this was about an hour of drawing. And even here you can see that the watch helps establish the direction the wrist is going. Plus you can tell time. It's great. I should really do more hand studies like this because I have a really good time doing them. So this is actually me drawing someone else in the coffee shop. They were like not moving very much and just kind of like looking through their phone. So I didn't have to worry too much about them like getting up and leaving while I was doing this. So I just quickly sketched their hand. And because I think that watches are helpful, I kind of like started drawing one around his wrist and I was like, no, he's not wearing one. I shouldn't do that. This is a study. And this one's obviously quite a bit looser than the others. I couldn't totally see what was happening with his fingers, so I just kind of roughed it in. Then I apparently sat there for a while not doing anything. I was probably sharpening my pencil or something. I guess I'm just not shading that one. That's fine. I think this is another fist, and I don't know why I started with the thumb. It's generally not how I do it. I'm still establishing the outer edges and then working my way inside into the smaller details, though. I guess I just felt that the thumb was kind of like a prominent feature of the fist, so maybe that's why I started with it. I couldn't tell you though. And this is kind of a loose fist, so the fingertips aren't really tucked in very hard. And I think this pointer finger is actually like not tucked in at all. So there's like a little gap there. And there was some light coming through. I'm starting to remember it now. Yeah, so that's basically it. I hope that this video has been at all helpful. I just kind of wanted to do something on how I draw hands and show what that process looks like. Thanks.